Claire was 43 years old when she realized she was tired. Not physically tired, not the kind of tired that sleep could fix. She was tired in a deeper way, the kind of exhaustion that comes from years of being easy. Easy to live with, easy to agree with, easy to adapt. People often described Claire as comfortable. She's so understanding. She doesn't make drama. She's very flexible. For a long time, Claire thought those were compliments. Now she understood what they really meant. She was convenient. Her marriage hadn't ended with screaming or slammed doors. There was no betrayal, no shocking discovery. Just silence. Years of silence. She remembered one evening clearly. She stood in the kitchen holding a piece of paper with groceries written on it. Chicken, fish, vegetables. She turned to her husband and asked, "What do you want for dinner?" He didn't even look up from his phone. "Whatever you want." She waited. "Really?" she asked. "Chicken or fish?" He sighed slightly. "Claire, it doesn't matter. You choose." And suddenly she felt something strange. Not anger, not sadness, emptiness. Because whatever you choose wasn't kindness anymore. It was absence. That night, lying in bed, she stared at the ceiling and thought, when was the last time someone actually wanted something from me and told me? She couldn't remember. After the divorce, people said the usual things. "You'll meet someone else. 40 is the new 30. You're still young." Claire smiled politely, but inside she thought, I don't want to be young. I want to be real. She didn't rush into dating. No apps, no blind dates. She was afraid, not of being alone, but of disappearing again. Living alone felt strange at first. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. But slowly, the silence stopped feeling empty. It started feeling safe. Mornings became her favorite time. Coffee, no talking, no explaining. Just her thoughts. Sometimes she asked herself, who am I when no one needs anything from me? It wasn't an easy question. She started noticing things. How she liked her coffee stronger than before. How she preferred walking instead of driving. How she enjoyed bookstores more than restaurants. These were small things, but they felt like discoveries. One afternoon, she wandered into a small bookstore cafe, not looking for anything, just killing time. That's where she met Daniel. He was standing near the counter, flipping through a novel. He frowned slightly, then laughed to himself. "Have you read this?" he asked, looking at her. She glanced at the cover. "Yes," she said, "and I don't understand why everyone loves it." His eyes lit up. "Thank God," he said. "I thought something was wrong with me." She smiled. They talked about books, about age, about how silence feels different when you stop being afraid of it. There was no flirting, no performance, just honesty. When they said goodbye, Claire didn't feel butterflies. She felt calm, and that scared her more than excitement ever had. That night, lying in bed, she thought, this feels different. Not better, different. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't ask herself, does he like me? She asked, do I like how I feel when I'm myself? Claire didn't hear from Daniel for 2 days after their meeting, and that was the first strange thing. She noticed the silence, but she didn't panic. No tight chest, no checking her phone every 5 minutes, No inner voice whispering, "You said something wrong." Instead, she noticed something else. She was fine. That realization unsettled her more than waiting ever had. In the past, silence meant danger. Silence meant rejection was coming. Silence meant she needed to do something, write first, soften the space, make herself visible again. Now, silence was just silence. On the third day, Daniel sent a simple message. "I enjoyed our conversation. Would you like to meet again?" No emojis, no pressure. Claire read it twice. Then she put her phone down. Not to play games, but to listen to herself. Do I want to see him again? Not, should I? Not, what if I lose the chance? Do I want to? The answer came quietly. Yes. They met for a walk this time. No cafe, no table between them, just a long path near the river. Daniel walked beside her, not too close, not too far. "So," he said, "how has your week been?" Claire paused. In the past, she would have given a polished answer. "Busy, but good. Nothing special." Instead, she said, "Calm. And that's new for me." Daniel looked at her. "In a good way?" She nodded. "In a way that feels unfamiliar, like I'm not running anymore." They walked in silence for a few moments. Not awkward, just quiet. "I was married for a long time," Daniel said suddenly. "After the divorce, I realized I didn't know how to be alone." Claire smiled slightly. "I had the opposite problem," she said. "I didn't know how to exist when someone was always next to me." He laughed softly. "Sounds like we're both relearning things." That word stayed with her. Relearning. They talked about ordinary things. Work, books, aging parents, how friendships change after 40. But beneath every sentence, there was something deeper. Neither of them was trying to impress. They were trying to understand. After the walk, Daniel asked, "Can I see you again this week?" Claire felt the familiar urge to say yes immediately, to prove interest, to show availability. Instead, she took a breath. "I need to check my schedule," she said honestly, and waited. Daniel didn't flinch. "Of course," he said. "Let me know." That moment mattered more than he realized. That evening, alone in her apartment, Claire sat on the couch and stared at the wall. Why does this feel so difficult? She wondered. Not seeing him, but choosing the pace. She realized something uncomfortable. She had always confused intensity with closeness. Fast connection, frequent contact, constant reassurance. She thought that was love. But this felt different. Slower, quieter, and much more honest. They met again a few days later, dinner at a small, quiet restaurant. Halfway through the meal, Daniel asked, "So, are you seeing anyone else?" The question was calm, neutral. Claire felt a familiar tightening inside. In the past, this question meant expectations, rules. Now she answered carefully. "No," she said, "but I'm also not looking to rush into anything." Daniel nodded. "I'm the same." No disappointment, no tension, just clarity. On the way home, Claire noticed something important. She hadn't performed. She hadn't softened her words. She hadn't adjusted her truth to sound easier. Later that night, she wrote in her journal, something she hadn't done in years. "I'm not afraid of him," she wrote. "I'm afraid of losing myself again." She closed the notebook and felt a quiet resolve settle in her chest. A week later, Daniel invited her to spend the weekend away. "Just 2 days," he said. "No expectations." The old Claire would have said yes immediately. This time, her body reacted before her mind. Tension. Resistance. "I'm not ready for that," she said slowly. The words felt heavy, important. Daniel paused, then nodded. "Thank you for telling me." That was all. No pressure, no persuasion. After he left, Claire sat alone for a long time. Her heart was racing. What if I just ruined everything? What if this is how opportunities disappear? This how self-respect begins? That night she slept deeply, without anxiety, without rehearsing conversations in her head. And for the first time in her life, Claire understood something fundamental. Love didn't have to arrive loudly. Sometimes it came quietly and waited to see if you would abandon yourself or not. Claire noticed the change before she could explain it. Nothing dramatic happened. No argument, no disappointment, just a subtle shift inside her. Daniel was still the same, kind, attentive, respectful. But the closer they became, the louder her past started to speak. One evening, Claire was standing in her kitchen, washing dishes, when a familiar thought appeared. This is when it usually begins. She froze. The sound of running water suddenly felt too loud. In her previous marriage, closeness always came with a cost. The more time they spent together, the more she adjusted. Her tone, her schedule, her opinions. At first, it was invisible. Later, it was everything. She remembered a moment from years ago. She had been excited about a work opportunity, a small promotion. "I'll need to stay late a few evenings a week," she said back then, trying to sound casual. Her husband had smiled. "Of course," he said. "Just don't forget we barely see each other already." She remembered how guilt settled in her chest. How she said, "It's not that important." How she declined the offer 2 days later. Standing in her kitchen now, Claire whispered, "I won't do that again." The next time she saw Daniel, she was quieter, more observant. He noticed. "You seem a little distant," he said gently. Claire hesitated. In the past, she would have denied it. "No, I'm fine." But now, honesty felt safer than pretending. "I'm trying to understand my own reactions," she said. "It's not about you." Daniel nodded. "Take your time." That sentence followed her for days. Take your time. No one had ever said that to her before. Still, fear doesn't disappear just because it's understood. It waits. One afternoon, Claire ran into her ex-husband at the grocery store. An ordinary coincidence. A familiar face. "Claire," he said, surprised. "You look good." She smiled politely. "Hi." They exchanged a few neutral sentences. Work, weather, nothing personal. But when she got back to her car, her hands were shaking. Driving home, memories surfaced without warning. How often she had swallowed words. How often she had said yes when she meant no. How she had confused peace with silence. That night, she dreamed she was trying to speak, but no sound came out. She woke up with her heart pounding. The next day, Daniel asked her to come over for dinner. Claire almost said yes automatically. Then she stopped herself. "Can we talk first?" she asked. "Of course." They sat across from each other in his living room. The atmosphere was calm, but Claire felt exposed. "There's something I need you to know," she began. Daniel leaned forward slightly, attentive. "In my last relationship," she said slowly, "I lost myself without realizing it." She swallowed. "I'm afraid of doing that again." Daniel didn't interrupt, didn't reassure too quickly. He waited. "I don't need constant closeness," she continued. "I need space to stay whole." Her voice trembled, but she didn't stop. "If that's a problem, I'd rather know now." Silence filled the room. Not heavy, just honest. Daniel finally spoke. "Thank you for trusting me with that." He paused. "I don't want you smaller," he said. "I want you present." Claire felt tears rise unexpectedly. Not from sadness, from relief. Still, the fear didn't disappear. Because trust after 40 isn't blind. It's cautious, earned slowly. Over the next weeks, they continued seeing each other, but Claire paid attention to herself. How her body reacted, where tension appeared, when she felt free, when she felt pressure. One evening, Daniel asked casually, "Would you ever consider moving closer to me?" The question was innocent, but Claire felt it immediately. The tightening, the alarm. She took a breath. "I don't know," she said honestly, "and I don't want to promise something I might regret." Daniel nodded. "That's fair." After he left, Claire sat alone and cried. Not because of the question, but because she had answered truthfully. For the first time in her life. She realized something important that night. Setting boundaries wasn't pushing people away. It was inviting the right ones to stay. But she also knew a moment would come when she'd have to choose. Not between him and solitude, but between him and her old self. And that moment was closer than she thought. Claire knew the moment had arrived before she even met Daniel that evening. It wasn't dramatic. No alarms went off. No one had yelled. But inside, her chest tightened with anticipation. Daniel greeted her with a smile, holding 2 coffees. "You look thoughtful," he said lightly. Claire placed her bag down and took a deep breath. "I've been thinking," she began. Daniel tilted his head, listening carefully. "I can't keep doing what I did before, adjusting myself, softening my edges, becoming convenient." Daniel nodded slowly. "I understand," he said. "But what does that mean for us?" Claire felt the familiar rush of fear. Is he going to leave? Will this ruin everything? She swallowed. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I just know I won't compromise myself to keep someone around, even if that someone is you." Her words hung in the air. Daniel didn't react like she expected. No shock, no anger, no retreat. He sat back and studied her. "You're serious?" he said softly. "Yes," Claire replied. "I am. And I hope you can respect that." He smiled faintly. "I do. More than you know. I've spent years with people who disappeared into themselves, or expected others to disappear into them. You're the first person I've met who's completely present." Claire's chest tightened. Tears pricked her eyes. "Finally," she thought, "someone sees me without asking me to be smaller." They sat in silence for a while, neither needing to fill it. The world outside, the hum of cars, distant laughter, leaves rustling in the evening breeze, it all faded. It was just them. Then Daniel spoke again. I don't need you to change. I want you as you are. All of you. Claire nodded. I want that too. But I'm scared, she admitted. Scared that I'll revert to old habits. Scared I'll lose myself again. Daniel reached across the table and gently touched her hand. Then we go slow. We don't rush. We don't expect. We simply stay present. Claire felt her breath slow, her heart steady. Something shifted inside her. That night, walking home, she reflected on every decision she had made in the past few weeks. She had said no. She had set boundaries. She had paused when her instinct told her to leap for approval. And the world had not ended. In fact, it had opened up. A few days later, Daniel invited her for a weekend getaway. The old Claire might have said yes immediately. Instead, she paused. I'm not ready, she said honestly. His reaction was calm. Thank you for telling me, he said. Nothing more was needed. Claire returned home that evening and sat by her window. She watched the city lights shimmer across the river. She realized that love after 40 wasn't about urgency. It wasn't about proving yourself. It wasn't about giving in to comfort or expectation. It was about choice. Conscious, deliberate, sometimes uncomfortable choice. That night she wrote in her journal, I am allowed to take up space. I am allowed to have boundaries. I am allowed to choose myself first. She read it aloud softly. The words felt heavy and light all at once. Days passed. They continued to see each other, slowly. Sometimes coffee, sometimes walks, sometimes silence. But Claire noticed a profound difference. She felt whole, present, aligned. And Daniel noticed too. Something's changed, he said one evening. I stopped being convenient, she replied with a small smile. And that, he said, is exactly why I'm here. Claire had faced her fear. She had chosen herself. And in doing so, she had found someone who could walk beside her, without asking her to shrink. Claire woke up on a Saturday morning feeling lighter than she had in years. It wasn't excitement. It wasn't adrenaline. It was peace. She made herself coffee, sat by the window, and watched the city slowly wake up. The light reflected off the buildings, soft and golden, and for the first time, she didn't feel like she had to hide behind routines or smiles to be easy to live with. A message buzzed on her phone. It was Daniel. Morning. Thought of you. Want to grab breakfast? She smiled. Not because she was eager, but because she could choose. Sure, she replied. They met at a quiet cafe by the river. No fancy plans, no pressure, just presence. As they walked afterward, Daniel asked, Do you ever worry that this, whatever we have, won't last? Claire paused, thought carefully. Yes, she said honestly. But I've realized something important. Love doesn't have to last forever to be real. And if it does, it will because we are whole, not because we shrink to fit each other. Daniel stopped walking and looked at her. You've changed, he said. Completely. And I mean it in the best way. Claire laughed softly. Not nervously. Not for him. For herself. The weeks passed quietly. They didn't rush. They didn't test each other. They simply existed alongside each other, whole, present, and fully alive. Claire noticed small things: how she could speak her mind without fear, how she could enjoy time alone and time together equally, how every interaction was a choice, not a necessity. One evening, sitting on her balcony with tea in hand, Claire reflected. She thought of her past, of the years she had disappeared inside relationships, of the fear she had carried for decades. Now she felt free, and she realized that freedom was the foundation of all love after 40. Daniel joined her on the balcony. "You look peaceful," he said. "I am," she said. "Finally." He smiled. "You know, I don't need anything from you. I just enjoy having you here, as you are." Claire looked at him. She saw honesty, respect, choice, and she understood something vital. Love after 40 wasn't about starting over. It wasn't about rushing into a new life or chasing excitement. It was about never losing yourself again. A week later, Claire and Daniel took a walk by the river at dusk. The sky was painted in gold and lavender. They didn't hold hands, at least not yet. They walked side by side, present, whole. "I've learned something," Claire said quietly. "Love isn't about being convenient. It's about being real, being yourself, and letting someone choose you for that." Daniel nodded. "You're right, and I choose you, exactly like this." That night, Claire sat by her window again. She watched the city lights reflect on the river, and for the first time in a long time, she smiled. Not out of habit, not out of expectation, not to please anyone. She smiled because she was herself, and that was enough.